Welcome to this week's episode of Marijuana Mind. I believe it's the 81st episode with yours
80th.
truly. 80th?
80th.
Only 80th. Only 80th. Yours truly, Dr. J. Davis, and my bedazzled co-host, Cynthia Brewer.
I'm not even bedazzled today.
But you're
Last
always
time
a
you
little
said
bedazzled.
tatted and mermaid hair tatted up. Something like that. That was awesome. And also very accurate. So
You're generally bedazzled.
I'm slightly glistening, a little glittery.
Yes.
In spirit. So before we talk about our guest today, who's actually a real treat, because only knowing and talking to this gentleman for the 10 minutes that you were late for our show, I feel like he is in fact my spirit animal. If they made a boy version, it would look like him, not just because of some of his extracurricular activities, but because he is also considered extra among his group. But
nobody would ever say that about you.
That you only say that about me.
I only do.
So that's why I went to your office this week and I took pictures of myself sitting in your desk with my feet up on your airplane.
And in the bathroom, which is why you're bedazzled.
Actually, I did take pictures in the bathroom. Yeah, because it's the best Instagram spot. It's got the glitter wall and the graffiti wall. No one knows it's a bathroom until you just now told them. Thanks a lot. I've changed my profile pic now. Two housekeeping things we have to talk about with cannabis in Florida is not so much cannabis, but the fact that DeSantis announced his running for the presidency through a very shoddy, very glitchy, they said glitchy, Twitter live with Elon Musk. Do you have any thoughts on that? It went horrible. It was not, it went really bad.
Yeah, it was pretty ballsy to go that route.
I think it was kind of showboaty, and that's not like it. He looked outside of his comfort zone, but his wife was stunning. She should run. I would vote for her twice.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I'm so curious to know what the presidential race, let alone the outcome, what the presidential race is going to look like.
I think it's going to be dirty, and it's going to be like covered in Kentucky Fried Chicken and Mountain Dew, and it's just going to be like one constant this face like that. That's what I think. But I don't know the future.
We all knew DeSantis was going to run. That's no surprise.
You know what? Not everybody knew. And I didn't think about that because somebody the other day came up to me and was like, do you want some really good news? And I'm like, yeah, hit me. Give me the tea. And they're like, DeSantis is running for president and he's announcing it this week. And I was like, okay, all right. Yeah, that's great. It's gold.
Let's see if our guest has any thoughts on this matter.
There's one more thing we got to talk about.
Okay, but we'll get back to that.
It's important to you. It's super important to you. So after that bill passed about telehealth, where the rules say that you have to see the patient first and then you get to see them through telehealth, that is a telehealth bill. I actually found somebody that's slinging telehealth already without an in-person visit in Florida. So what's the punishment again?
Punishment is if they get caught doing that, they will not be allowed to do telehealth at all. And they possibly could get banished for 2 years from marijuana.
It's a big physicians group that's doing it. I just saw the ad pop up on my feed.
Are you allowed to say who it is?
I'm not going to because I don't really want to like gossip about the industry. I'm not a narc, but like I'm talking with close friends here. I've never heard of them before, but they just popped up. I'm going to send you the article. I'm not going to go tell the law so that they get in trouble because then they'll come after me just like,
Yeah, that was the fear with this bill that, that people had, was that there's going to be people that are instantly going to abuse it just like they did before. I can't see that.
Yes, you can.
Too much glare.
Oh, why is there? I'm not going to say it, but it's on the internet. So they're going to get found out eventually, but I'm just like, come on, why do you have to ruin it for everybody? All right. That's it. That's our housekeeping. Today we have a great guest. And I don't want to like bastard your last name. Like I don't want to bastardize it by trying to say it wrong. But today's guest is a graduate from UC Irvine with an MBA in finance and a bachelor's in history and public affairs from the University of Denver. More notably, his role as co-founder and partner at Katan. Did I say that right? Katan Associates, or Kai? Or you say KAI?
Katan is fine.
I nailed it. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Co-founder of the Mulholland Project LLC, Seth Yakatan has been providing the cannabis industry with valuable insight and guidance on corporate finance and monetization. And with over 30 years in the cannabis space, has created a trusted and successful brand for our industry to turn to. How'd I do?
Well, you did okay. Thank you.
What's it? Okay is actually what you say when someone does the opposite.
That's really high. Okay, I'm really sarcastic. So okay is like a 7 for me.
Oh, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
I haven't really been in cannabis itself for 30 years.
Mostly the like
biotech.
Part.
Yeah. I was much more in biotech. I mean,
I didn't even write that, and I said
it's okay. Yeah,
I didn't write that you were in cannabis. I just said
I kind of moved to cannabis from traditional. I'm going to sound very dorky. Traditional therapeutic drug development. So,
but that's okay. And you're based out of California.
It's
right?
fine. Yeah, I'm based in Los Angeles. So,
Justin,
let's just call it as it is. You basically have the voice of a professional radio star, podcaster. You've been told this before, I'm sure, right?
Thank you. I've been told often that I have a great face for radio. Yes.
Oh, that's messed up. That's me. No, you have a beautiful voice for like a speaking voice, like someone who hosts like a podcast, like a Joe Rogan type situation.
Thank you very kindly. I'm always putting myself out there if you need a third guest host. Okay. Once in a while, you want somebody to pitch hit. Just put me in. Call him for the lefty.
So if people are watching on YouTube, yes, he does make his own bracelets, just like I do. And he is like got all of the chakras activated on each arm. He's got how many? 8 rings? Well,
I only have 6 rings on today.
I apologize, but that's my bad, everybody. There's hematite.
There's a lot going on. We got hematite. We have hematite. We have fluorite. We have 2 forms of tiger's eye. We have antique turquoise. Yeah. And then we have some lavender over here. A lot of fluorite.
Basically, if Mr. T were new age, that would be you.
Pretty much, yeah.
If Mr. T, like if he was like into composting and yoga and like open to smoke a bowl, which he might actually be, this is what he would transition to. What's around the neck?
Just 2 malas. Just 2 malas.
Thought it was bone.
No, there's
your enemies.
Yeah, no, I'm not like that.
Okay, well that's good. I would say neither am I, but I am. We'll get into that later. So
okay,
I want to bring up one thing. You were featured on a podcast recently. Well, maybe it wasn't so recent, but it was on your profile about Grow Everything podcasts. And you said something that resonated with me that I want to bring up. You mentioned when people find out that you work in cannabis, they usually ask you for weed. Can we have some weed?
Sure.
All right. That's the number one thing I think that's funny about the cannabis industry is that people do that all the time. Does that bother you?
It doesn't. I mean, most of the people that I know, that ask me that are not in the cannabis industry. So it just depends on what their predilection and orientation is. But I tell people that just if a camera crew were to follow me around for a week in California, you put the edit together, you just wouldn't believe it. Like it's just, my life is definitely weird.
I mean, what would they see if they were to follow you?
They would see a minute and 30 cut reel of Narcos Mexico meets LA street life meets Selling Sunset meets Baywatch.
Orange County. Yeah,
exactly. With a little like crunchy extra granola shaman Laguna arty thing. It's just
once in a while you gotta do sunrise salutation. Yeah,
it's a lot.
I like that. But does that so let's update everybody. So you have a big amount of your experience in the biotech industry, which is very like cut and dry, black and white, right? It's a very highly regulated industry.
Completely.
And then, but you're very fluent. You speak fluent cannabis and sarcasm, obviously. But
Yeah, well, it's probably because I cut my I still do a decent amount of things in the biopharma landscape, and the default setting in most biopharmaceutical companies is we need to raise money.
Yep.
Because remember, what you're typically doing in a traditional therapeutic drug company is you're taking somewhere between 70 and $1 billion of capital, and you're lighting it on fire to try and get a drug approved. And if that drug gets approved and you have 14 to 20 years of commercialization on it, it'll pay you back. Right now, remember, from kind of inception to approval, there's about an 8% steady state probability of a drug ever getting approved. Okay. So you have to bet on a lot of things. But the default setting and the mindset of the entrepreneur, and further, there's very rigid structures around how you can commercialize. And there's a very finite number of global investors who want to take on that level of risk. So the conditioning that I got, with 16 or 17 years of repeated blunt force trauma of doing that, made my default setting to look at how many options can I create for capital for my companies that I'm involved with.
That's huge.
Well, it's just very translatable to cannabis because many of the same things occur. It's highly regulated. Cannabis can be commercialized, but it's difficult to commercialize ubiquitously because you basically have 28 different markets in the United States. In some states, you have different markets. You don't have any form of economies of scale towards that. Capital is even more scarce than in biotechnology. Most of the things that I would normally do in a biotech or a healthcare company to get capital, I can't do in cannabis. So when I started showing up in the room in a cannabis company and I said, well, you're generating revenue, but you think you're dead, like that was a disconnect there for me, which created opportunity. So I also think that because, and I'm not trying to denigrate the industry, but because in traditional life sciences, you have a fairly detailed roadmap or fairly reprintable blueprint of here's 5 or 6 ways you can get into the industry and be successful. I'm going to go get a PhD and I'm going to work in a lab and I'm going to go to work for a pharmaceutical company, or I can go get my MBA and I can go to work for a fund and I can figure it out, or I can go to work for a thought leader. Those models or templates don't really exist in cannabis. So people that come from different industries try to apply those industries to cannabis and it doesn't work. And a lot of the people that you have in cannabis have been successfully operating businesses in the legacy market, and that makes it really difficult.
Right.
So, just one sec.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Can I come back to you? Sorry. Sorry, I'm just.
So what is made? So all knowing all of that you said, you're forgiven instantly.
Yeah. Nothing. This is a first for us, but this was actually hilarious.
I'm in a conference room in one of the companies that I work with. So
yeah, we could have given him the what's to for get the hell out of here. Did you know this is a Marijuana Mind podcast? But seriously, what? So all of that being said, what has made you a successful entrepreneur, both generally and specifically in the cannabis world?
Gosh, I have very low self-esteem, so I don't really believe that I'm successful. So
maybe that's not self-esteem. Maybe that's like hunger. Like you're going to, if you don't see the finish line, then you keep like striving for it, right?
I just haven't achieved what I believe I'm capable of.
There you go.
In life.
Success is always different. It's not always measured by like monetary.
What's made you a semi-successful? Seriously though, what is let's not say you're at the pinnacle of your success.
That's fine. I understand. I'll answer the question with humility. I know how to raise money. are very difficult to raise things. I've been an investor, I've been an entrepreneur, I've been on boards of companies, I've been CEOs of companies, I've been management teams of companies. There's a dance. There used to be the Fred Astaire School of Dance, and there was a choreographed step of teaching you how to tango. It's all it is. So one thing is I know how to talk to investors. I also know how to gain information on where markets are. And I'm able to understand what the bid ask spread is in terms of, I want to go raise X million dollars at a Y valuation for this kind of company in this sector. It's pretty easy for me to do that. So I can kind of understand if you want to go, just like say you're baking chocolate chip cookies and you want to find out what you could charge for the chocolate chip cookies. I know 40 people that are going to buy chocolate chip cookies. So I can say, well, what did you buy your last cookie for? So there's some of that. I also think my style personally is much different than most people's. I'm just going to tell you the truth. I'm not going to try and sell you. I'm not going to try and brag about all the things that I've done. I'm not going to try and be convinced by you that you're right. I'm not going to try and convince you that I'm right. I'm just going to say, here's where I see market. Here's what I can do. And if you want my help, I'm very happy to help you. Here's what it's going to cost. And if you like that, great. And if you don't like it, please call me, because I'm happy to either have you be right, or tell me that I was right at some point, because 70% of the time I know I'm right, So it's just, most people that are intermediaries or bankers or real estate agents or sales guys are very salesy, or women are very salesy, are very pushy, are very, arrogant. And I try and just take a completely different approach and just say, I'm going to let my experience speak for itself.
Mm-hmm.
You can determine whether that's good enough for you. I am extremely expensive. It is not easy to get me to do something for you. And once you've got me on, you've got me on. But after that, the rest of it's kind of up to you. So I just think it's a combination of those things.
That you said your self-esteem, but that whole statement there is seeing your own value, that you know exactly the stuff that you're going to provide these people that are inquiring about where they can make money and put money and all this stuff. You have the information, you do, and you know that you're good at what you do. So that comes with a hefty price tag. So that actually shows that you appreciate your own value. And that's actually the opposite of having low self-esteem. That's knowing your personal value. So that was actually just a statement, not a question. Don't you worry.
I appreciate that. I know that I do. And I think, the other thing that I try to do to people is I could probably, if I wanted to, get hired in some way, for almost every project that shows up at my doorstep. I'm sure I could, right?
Well,
so just hold on. So the other thing that I kind of tend to do is, if I know that I cannot help someone do what they want to do, I'm just going to tell them, and I'm going to politely tell them why. And I might say, good luck, or I might say, here's a couple people to call, or here's a couple people who might help you, but I don't want to waste your time, because given what you want, I don't think I can go do that, either because I don't believe in it or because I think it's outside of market. I am also kind of a classically trained statistician. So if you remember, in statistics, there was this bell curve. And things, there was a mean, and there was one standard deviation away from the mean and two standard deviations away from the mean. So what I tend to find in pricing assets is that if you're kind of a standard deviation away from the mean or more, you're probably in the zone. If you're more than that, you're probably not in the zone. And if you're not in the zone, I don't know that I'm going to help you. Good analogy for that. You have a car, you think it's worth $50,000. I come and I want to buy it for you, and I offer you $15,000. What are you going to do? Counter me at 45 and I'm going to counter you at 20? That's not going to happen. No, if you have a car, if it's 50 and I counter you at 40 and we meet at 45, or I counter you at 35 and you got out of 42.5 and I get to 41, right? Like, it's that process. And kind of how I look at the things that I'm going to get involved with as well.
So I like the fact that you're not afraid to tell people no, and not so much crush their dreams, but be realistically accurate and honest, because that's something that I feel like half of our industry might practice on a day to day. They'll say, okay, you know, I want to get into the cannabis space. What do I do? And I'll say, you can't. Sorry. Like, it's just impossible. In Florida specifically, it's just practically impossible. The application stuff, you have to wait. You have to have a lot of money. And so, but if you want to, this is what you have to have. Now, what is it like for you? Let's talk about, is it KAI or Kai? Because it kind of feels like you might have a Hawaiian vibe.
No, I don't have a Hawaiian vibe.
Kind of do to me.
Okay.
Maybe a Laguna.
Maybe it's a Laguna. Maybe it's a Laguna vibe.
I used to go and hang out with my grandparents in Laguna Niguel, and I think you frequent Laguna and San Francisco.
I frequent Laguna a lot. Actually, I have my Laguna surf and sport hat.
That's where I got it from. I already knew. I saw it in a photo.
And it's good that,
research.
It's good that, if you're not bullshitting people, that they know they can trust you. You tell them something good, they know it's real and they can trust you. And if it's not good, you're going to tell them, and hopefully they can take it as constructive, either criticism or just, understand better why.
But he did bring up an interesting point about how he can choose to tell someone that it's not going to work based off of his values and beliefs. So that's where my question comes in. If you're approached with somebody who's well funded, a lot of capital, and they are not in a cannabis space, and they maybe did something completely different. I'm not going to say banking, because the last gentleman we had on, he was trying to bridge that gap too. But I'm saying, like, somebody who maybe never gave a shit about cannabis, and now they see how lucrative it is and how the industry is growing, and now they want to give a shit about cannabis. Have you ever told someone that you're not going to work with them, you're not going to assist them in their endeavor, because you didn't like where they were coming from?
Yeah, not because it was that they did something else and now they've suddenly given a shit about cannabis.
Maybe
right?
their person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever deity you ascribe to, or whatever religious value you ascribe to, the zodiac has 12 signs, and the Chinese have 12 signs of the birth year and all that. There's a lot of different personality types. If you look at the Myers-Briggs exam, I think there's 16 different personality types. I've experienced them all in 30 years of doing what I've been doing. So there's definitely certain personality types that it's not going to work. So sometimes I don't care how much money someone has or what they're willing to do. It's just, I don't need to put myself up for that kind of, treatment or interaction or headspace or games or whatever. So there are definitely certain people that I will not work with just because it just doesn't click. The other thing that I also find, which is also interesting, is that in probably the last 25 or 30 years, I seem to attract a lot of crazy.
Oh.
Whether that's bipolar or multiple personality disorder or manic depressive. They tend to either be the most successful CEOs, or they tend to be able to raise an incredible amount of money, and then they're like criminally insane, like Lex Luthor.
Yeah, because the power that it's brought them, and they were being exactly themselves. No one had to mute them.
So I've witnessed that personality type probably 8 times, and depending upon where that is and where that person is in their cycle, sometimes I will choose to get involved with one of those.
So it's almost like brilliantly crazy.
Exactly.
Also
a lot of times
crazy.
People with either borderline or narcissistic personality disorders, which are often overlapping in many ways, can be extremely charismatic. Which,
yes,
right.
And one of the things that we can talk about, or I haven't talked about on another podcast, is that one of the most important attributes to raising money is charisma.
And let's talk about that, because charisma is one of those words where you can describe someone who's done horrible things as having charisma and was allowed to do so, like Hitler, or you can have people that have charisma and they do amazing things. What is it specifically about being able to excite a group of people with only your words and your enthusiasm that can be the make or break between a company's success or failure?
Well, I think it comes down to two different ways. When I'm not an operator, right? So I really don't want to go in and run a company and do accounting and deal with HR, and I don't want to do that. I'm like Larry David, right? Like I am just an old angry Jewish guy
I
inside,
love
right?
that
Like
show.
I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait in line. I have problems with everything. So
The
I just
coffee's not hot enough.
the
And
coffee.
the
Oh,
table's wobbly.
don't get me started. Don't get me
even
started.
started.
Don't
Yes.
get me started. So
I told you, Justin.
going back to the question, I usually see that manifest in kind of what I would say is two verticals. So the first vertical is someone who can rally the operations of the company to go in a direction. So I've seen that many times, and you can see that personality type, and that personality type is going to take 200 or 300 people and say, we're going to go do that, whatever's on that whiteboard, and we're going to crush it. And that could be in a sales function, or it could be in a pivot function, or it could be in a reboot function. And that can really drive success.
Can you give me an example of something like that in just for our guests, for our listeners, in practical terms? Like
Sure. So in
like.
in 2020, Ease decided to make a complete strategic pivot, and they went from a non-plant touching asset light company that took a product from a depot to a dispensary, or to an end user for delivery, or from a dispensary to an end user, and pivoted its model to, we're going to own all of our own depots. We're going to touch the plant. We're going to create white label products, and we're going to own our end user. And inside the business, there was probably two people, Ro Choi, who was the CEO, and Nick Fasano, who was my partner, who was the chief revenue officer, and probably Corey Azzolino, who's now the CEO, and maybe Megan Miller, who's now the COO of Mammoth. And that team catalyzed and took this company and completely pivoted it in the middle of COVID. Right?
How likely is that to happen? You deal with this all the time.
Not often. It's probably honestly one of the greatest corporate turnarounds and pivots I've ever seen. So you had people in that team that Ro was leading, and Corey was operating on the financial level, and Nick was driving a whole sales team and making sure brands were there, and Megan was keeping everybody happy and making sure everything got done. So that's a
machine, right?
It was, and the wheels were going to fall off the wagon a bunch. But by the time 2021 came around, I think they hit every single one of their KPIs and went from non-plant touching, we don't own any assets, we don't have any product, to plant touching, we own or operate 13 depots, we bought 2 retail stores, and we have $60 million worth of our own product on the menu. That was a pretty good pivot.
That's ballsy.
I feel like you see that in successful startups, especially, like the Silicon Valley startups, where they have that flexibility, or something changes and they say, let's go with it, versus like a Gap, which was already so entrenched, and it's having it's struggling now, or Bed Bath and Beyond just literally went out of business, and they're too entrenched. They can't make those kinds of instantaneous pivots.
So a pivot versus a what?
So let's go back to the second vertical or the first vertical that we talked about. So like you said, how does charisma manifest?
Yes.
Well, one way charisma manifests is like in an operational context. Okay. Where I see it more often and where I experience it is in raising money.
Okay.
So there are human beings on the planet, and there aren't a lot of them, that are genetically encoded to raise money. So I'm just going to give you an example. I'm going to hold up.
Are you one of those human beings?
I don't think I am. I'm a Sherpa
Uh-huh.
and a whisperer and a shaman
I
and a
can see that.
rabbi for those
Yeah.
human beings, but I don't
Shout
believe
out
I'm
for
one of
you.
those
And
human beings. I
Justin's
could
a
be.
Jew. I think it's
So
well, you have to have the people that have, that
look,
attribute, and the connecting people that are the ancillary support to get those to the people that need the money. I feel like people that have a lot of money, capital that they want to spend on an industry don't tend to be the ones with the most charisma.
right.
They have to have someone like you to make them excited about where they're about to spend it, because they have money. They already did the hard part.
So I've done that. My approach and philosophy is rather self-deprecating. I think I'm pretty stupid. I kind of go to, shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. If you have to, it's too hard for me. I just want to make it simple. So to that point, I tend not to just do or be involved in one company at a time. My pharma conditioning has made me believe that most things are going to fail. So I like to be in 6 or 7 things at one time or more. And because of that, I believe that to have that type of trait, you need to be in one thing. And this is my thing. And this is what I am going to do. And I am breathing it every day.
Mhm.
And you need to have that level of passion and conviction to be one of those people. I will tell you, now we'll talk about a practical example. Luke Anderson from Cannes is that
Mhm.
person.
Okay.
Kyle Kazan from Glasshouse is that person. There are 2 people in California cannabis who, I have seen raise more money in shorter periods of time in worse markets than maybe ever. In biotech, there's a very well-known biopharmaceutical company in Los Angeles called Kite Pharma.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who founded, his name is Ari Beldegren.
I love how he says everybody's first and last name.
There's in this bottle of hand sanitizer that I'm holding up, there's probably about 98% water and 2% alcohol. There might be something floating around in it. Ari could go raise $500 million for this bottle of hand sanitizer right now. Right now.
Is that the type of person that you're connecting with our industry? Or is that the type of person that doesn't always want to connect with our industry because they're so good at making something out of nothing and they can raise so much money at the drop of a hat? It's come so easy and fluid to them. Are they the best people to be connecting into cannabis? Because sometimes that's a skill that would almost be good and evil.
So sometimes,
yeah,
cannabis seems to have a very binary toggle function type of selectivity to it. So if, let's just say, this is a pretty good week for me. So it's Thursday, right? So Tuesday night, I had dinner with a young guy who manages about a $600 million family office, who's allocated about 30% of that into cannabis. And Monday night, I had a lunch or dinner with a woman who is a asset allocator for an $18 billion multifamily family office.
Billion.
Okay? Billion, yeah.
B.
Billion with a B, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
And she really wants to invest in cannabis. And her super wealthy families really want to invest in cannabis. They just can't figure out how to.
Or where?
So,
and is that your role? Is you are the Sherpa of, let me show you how to invest all of your money? Not all of your money, but all of this money.
The way that I approach it is that here's what I'm going to do. You believe that I am a thought leader and connected. I'll share my world with you. I'm not going to ask you for anything. But when you're ready, you better come to me.
Yeah.
And when I have something which I think is spectacular and I'm going to put my own money into it, I'm going to show it to you. And
like I'm trying to think of the word for what this is. First I was thinking like loan shark kind of thing, but then I was like, no, he's
more like a favor system. like a
No,
favoritism, right?
it's like, I don't know how to describe it, but if there's something where almost like a stockbroker kind of thing, like you have somebody who knows what's happening in the market, and I've got a lot of money, but I don't know where to put it. You're going to help me place it, but I better come to you. You know, you're going to make me money, and I'm going to trust you with mine, but like, I'm going to have loyalty to you. The loyalty piece, not the stockbroker piece.
Well, that's what
Not the market.
I was a history major.
Yeah. Yes, you were.
I was, yeah. And I liken it to, there was a system in ancient Rome of clients. And what happened is someone who was a power broker had people who served them as clients and people up the chain that they served as clients. And that's kind of the way that I look at it. So what will eventually happen to me is someone will then hire me to go do that for them. Or someone will come in and say, help me to do that. So for me, what I'm usually playing for is, I want to be your trusted advisor, and I want to figure out a way for me to make money with you as you make money. And I really don't want to ask you for much until you're ready to almost come seek me out as a partner. Right.
It sounds different. But Seth, it sounds like you're planting a lot of seeds, and there has to be a lot of trust involved. Have you ever been burned by any of these kinds of ventures?
I've been burned many times. I've actually usually been burned more when I have a contract in place. So it just depends. You know, it just depends. I also get hired by a lot of companies, right? And
yeah,
I also
see that as like a consultant.
Consultant.
Yeah.
Yep. And I also get hired by a lot of investors. But what I also kind of like to say to people, you know, is I have this network, and in our Mulholland business, which is really the cannabis focused business, we actively advise 2 funds. We have 4 family offices that we work with on their cannabis investments. We have another 4 high net worth individuals who have invested through us or come to us with their problems. Through Nick, who's my partner, who's the chief revenue officer at Can, you know, we have line of sight into about 3,000 doors into 11 states. Most of the people on the equity side and the debt side and the family office side, the pool is very small. So we talk a lot. We intersect a lot. They call me to find out what's going on. I call them to find out what's going on. We alluded to trust earlier. Probably the one thing that people in cannabis would say the most about me is I'm not going to violate your trust. Like, I'm not going to tell, if I know something that I shouldn't know about your company, I'm not going to go blab it to the industry. Or if I know something that's going on with your investor, I'm not going to go tell everybody. And that I think affords me a decent level of connectivity. So information information is power.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that where I sit in the industry is I probably sit with almost more asymmetric information than most people.
So you're at the level now where people are approaching you with opportunity. Like, you don't have to go and seek it. Like, you've established yourself enough to where people will come to you because you have a skill. You're like Liam Neeson. Okay. You have a certain set of skills. It's very specific, and you're very dangerous for people that mess with you, but you're not on the aggressive side. You're more on the certain set of skills that could be used for good. So they will come to you because your reputation has afforded you the ability to not have to move, not have to hustle, right? They're coming to you. You have a proven track record, and they want to put money in our industry, and they want to make money, but they have to pay you money, which means you've probably had some growth here from when you first started to do this, and then you start to see the value in what you're providing them in an industry that is incredibly new, right? Because there's no experts in cannabis if it's only been around for like 15 years or something like that. I think you did compare biopharma being around and cannabis being around as very new industries in a podcast. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm wrong.
I did. Yep. You're exactly correct.
Right. So because they're both very new industries, it is a risky move to put money anywhere. But the second somebody makes that decision and they have the money, coming to you is also could be risky, but it doesn't look like that seems to be the
Could
case. Is a good
could a
decision.
cannabis centered hedge fund, could that be a thing?
It is, and there are some.
Ooh,
That
what is a
there are
hedge
definitely.
fund? Can we talk about?
Uh,
Sorry, I don't know. I'm going to be honest. I don't know what.
it's a captive pool. It's a captive pool of capital that is designed to invest in a very specific strategy,
Is
which
it
is
limited?
usually in its charter. Yes, you have very large hedge funds, which are amalgamations of pools of capital that do one specific thing. So usually what a hedge fund is doing is it's trying to take advantage of some type of spread in the market by trading a security, either a bond or a high yield bond or a stock or something like that. So there
You know
are
what I hear
several.
when you say that? I hear a bunch of old white guys get all of their money together because they're very wealthy and they decide we're going to invest in something really specific. And then that's their hedge fund. And it could be something from, soda to bubblegum to weed. It's just whatever they all decide on.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's, I mean, that's a simplification of it, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I speak very simple. Like
It's okay, but usually they're very specific in their charter in terms of what they are doing. They have a specified, here's what we're doing and here's how much money we expect to make, kind of
exposure,
a thesis.
risk, all of that
Correct.
is already calculated and agreed upon. So that makes sense. So Justin, when you say cannabis hedge
Centered.
fund, would that be cannabis professionals putting capital into a certain activity or
No, it's investors that have lots and lots of money that
just the hedge fund for
trust
cannabis.
somebody that to run that
Yeah,
hedge
so
fund
that
that's going to make them money. In this
so
case,
so that
the cannabis industry.
Okay.
so there are 5 or 6 what are called ETFs or exchange traded funds that exist in cannabis, where someone has said, invest in my fund, and what my fund will do is I'll invest in all the cannabis stocks. It's kind of how that works. So there's several of them that exist. Unfortunately,
if it's not on, like, even if it's on the TSX or Canadian,
correct.
like they can cross over
correct.
and do all of that. Even, I mean, we've got a couple on ours, right?
You're just putting your
Correct.
money with this hedge fund or whatever, what did you call it? A ETFS?
ETF exchange traded fund.
Okay.
Yes. On those,
Not-
unfortunately, and kind of getting back to one of your points, is that the cannabis public equity markets by any stretch are down somewhere between 60 to 80% from their peak, depending upon how you measure them. So most people who have invested in cannabis, if they haven't gotten out, have not made a lot of money.
Right.
Wouldn't this be a good time to get in, since it's kind of crashed a bit? If you expect that it's going to go back up, this would be a great time to jump in.
Well, he's not a financial advisor, and also his advice comes with a price. Don't give away anything for free.
I'm not. I think it's an amazing time to get in.
Really?
I just think you have. Yeah, I just think you have to pick your spots and have a thesis.
Okay, what if somebody was very stock minded, though, where they're picking companies based off of a stock market list of options?
Great. So
we aren't all public.
So that's real easy, right? The two, depending upon how you want to look at it, the 2 largest companies in the industry are arguably GTI and TrueLeaf. Okay.
Arguably.
They're both public. They're both fairly large. They both generate revenue and cash flow.
Yep.
And there's a notion of a calculation called book value. It's a Wall Street term that kind of says how expensive are you relative to your assets. And there's the Warren Buffett School of Value Investing that says anything that has a book value of less than 1 is usually a good thing to buy. Anything that has a value of kind of like 1.5 or more is probably expensive. So GTI and Trulieve both have book values of like 0.6 or 0.65.
Okay.
So, if I haven't invested in cannabis and I want to make a cannabis bet in my 401k or in, just my investing thesis, put $25,000 in GTI and $25,000 in Trulieve and hold it for 7 years or hold it for 5 years. And I gotta believe that that's a 6 to an 8 bagger, right? Like there's no way it's not.
That is some free advice.
Free advice.
That is some actual industry professional that is giving you this gift. Now, this is funny that you say this because my area and Justin's area, because he's a recommending physician and I have a laboratory, we can't invest in cannabis. But before the Marijuana Mind became Marijuana Mind, they were the Canna Guys, where he had a different co-host that was always talking about where to put money for investment in cannabis on the Canna Guys, right, Justin?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So think back to before, pre-Cynthia, what were people talking about 3 years ago? And where were they telling people, where was he advising or suggesting people put their money? Because I think it's so funny how much cannabis changes, which makes me think it's almost risky, the amount of fluctuation.
Is that an actual question?
No, that's your question. Where was he telling people back then? Because now him saying GTI and Trulieve is surprising to me.
I'll answer that.
Okay.
Question.
Thank you,
right?
Seth.
Which is that look, you have 10 large public companies that are the biggest ones in the industry.
Let's name them.
And
Aurora.
Okay, so
Canopy.
Aurora, Canopy, GTI, Trulieve, Curaleaf,
Kronos.
Forefront, Chronos. I'm probably missing 1 or 2. Give me a second. Jason Wild's company, Fresco.
Yeah, that's a good one. Verano.
Maramed. I think I said Verano. Maramed, right?
Okay.
So maybe. So that's 10, right? There's probably another 3 or 4 that are meaningful, and they're all public. So, I think I know the capital structure of several of them. A few of them have a good amount of debt. I don't know that I'm really going after those to buy, but I think if you're just a single investor and you want to figure out a way to get into cannabis, do your research on those 10 or 12 names. Again, as a single human being, I just don't see you having much downside in investing in GTI and Trulieve now, given how they sit. Part of the problem of why cannabis and funds and investing doesn't really work is that, so if the 3 of us are in a fund, our performance is going to get ranked every year versus a benchmark. So if GTI, so if I have in my thesis a 7 to 10 year hold where I think cannabis is eventually going to get approved and capital markets are going to go, that's great. But as a fund, if I buy GTI at 23 and it goes down to 19, I'm down 20% on the year. And as a fund manager, I'm not going to get any more money because I got to be up 20% on the year. So the way that things work are kind of interesting. Also, to just riff back to a point, I'm on the ground in California. I've said this a few times. I'm long California. I think California is going to be the most important market for cannabis as long as I'm alive. It's the 8th largest economy in the world. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. I hear a lot of people, and there's been a lot of people recently talking about how difficult California is and about how hard it is. And it is. What I did for 10 years before I went into life sciences was I did leverage buyouts with private equity funds. I was the leveraged part of the buyout. And these private equity, and I learned so much doing that. And it's probably one of the reasons that I am good at what I do, is because I really understand true corporate finance and modeling and all that hocus pocus. But what I look for now, and I've said this before, is companies that just make money.
Mhm.
And in California, there are companies that make money, and there are a number of them. There's not a lot.
No.
There's probably 10% of the universe, but boy, I had a phone call yesterday with a brand called Stone Road, and
Mhm.
they make money. And I had breakfast this morning with a farm and kind of manufacturing services company called Possible, and they make money.
How long have they been
And
around in the cannabis California market?
Stone Road's been around for about 2.5, 3 years.
Okay. And the
Possible's
other?
been around for about 2.5, 3 years.
Okay,
They
so
both
since
definitely have.
California is a pretty well-established cannabis state, okay? The OG, right? So what about like that's a newer company that is actually profitable. Are any of the older OG companies still profitable
There's plenty
after
that
this
are.
time?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, there's
I didn't
plenty that
know.
are.
I wasn't sure
There's
if they had fizzled out because regulations and changes. I mean, things have changed dramatically in the industry since getting rated and having cash on hand and like trying
Absolutely.
to now. And so I wasn't sure how many of them survived all of that.
I think you're seeing a culling now. I think you're going to see another culling occur. Part of it has to do with capital. There's not a lot of capital. Two of the leading providers of capital is to brand and dispensary, one called Bespoke Financial and the other called LeafLink, have basically turned off the spigot in California. LeafLink is still around, but turned off the spigot. Bespoke got appointed a receiver. So basically the lender defaulted on itself, right? They lent so much money to so many people that we're never going to pay them back, that the parents showed up and said, no, we need to
Shut down the
figure
party.
out how we're going to get paid.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's a dysfunctional payment cycle in California between distribution and brand and retail.
Mhm.
And it's tough. I think depending upon what happens largely in distribution in this year and also with cultivation this year, you might see another 15 to 20% of the companies go away, and they probably need to go away. Fundamentally, though, all the companies that are going away, okay, are probably in one of three groups. Right? Either they just weren't profitable,
Mhm.
either they were poorly managed, or they just took too much money and didn't spend it to become better managed or get more profitable. So, when you go back to normal cell cycling, skin cells have to die. Like attrition is part of the growth of any industry. And what seems to be existing in cannabis, which is different than other industries that I've been involved with, is that there's this belief that companies failing is bad. And it is bad because people are affected and they lose their job, but it's the natural evolution of how industry occurs. I was thinking about this in the shower the other night because I have my best thoughts in the shower.
Interesting.
In 100 years from now, what are people going to remember about cannabis? Well, I'm an automobile enthusiast. So we're about 120 years into the advent of automobiles. And I challenge you, but what you really think about ubiquitously almost is three names and the names of three men: Ford, Porsche, and Ferrari.
Really?
I
Those are the
challenge you.
three names?
Come up with another name. Come up with another human being's name that ubiquitously you think about automobiles.
Well, okay. I
So
wouldn't
stick with
say
just
I'm
stick
thinking,
just stick with me. Okay.
yeah, I'm with you. I'm just thinking
Ford.
if it's automobile specific, then yeah, you're right. I mean,
All right.
'cause
So
the rest of them, Chrysler was absorbed and GM and all that stuff. Yeah.
Well, GM isn't a man's name.
No,
Chrysler is two
you're talking
brothers'
about
names. Just a
individuals
man.
that are
I'm
still
talking one individual, right?
okay.
And if you go back and you look at it, Henry Ford was a racist and an anti-Semite.
Yes.
It's documented.
Yes, he was.
Ferdinand, I'm Jewish and I own 6 of his cars, but Ferdinand Porsche was a Nazi. I don't care what you want to fucking say. He was
I don't
he was a
know,
Nazi.
but
All right.
we'll just take
Nazi.
that. Okay.
And by any stretch of the imagination, Enzo Ferrari was a narcissistic misogynist, right?
Oh, that's fun.
So
Throw that into the mix.
So when you look back at industry from a historical perspective, we don't all get an award for participation, you know. So
but I'm going to use your analogy. Some of those car companies that were maybe neck and neck with Ford were absorbed into a larger company, right? And they became a big guy. I want to know your take on cannabis companies as we see for the first time in what I can consider our lifetime, the absorption of all these companies into big, like giant conglomerates of cannabis companies. We are consolidating companies, and that is almost the mission of some of these MSOs, to eat up as many, become bigger and stronger.
So Cynthia, I'm just going to be as transparent as I can be with you and your viewers and Justin. That's why I'm here. That's the moment that I'm playing for.
Okay. Full circle, dude. This is a good one because I feel like
in another podcast, I talked about the amount of capital that exists in U.S. public equity markets versus the rest of the equity markets in the world. And if you look at how much capital has been raised for cannabis from Canada, it's like 7% or it's like 3% of all the equity capital that's available in the United States. Okay. So the moment that I'm honestly playing for is descheduling, rescheduling, or unscheduling. It's not safe banking.
Can you tell us what unscheduling is?
Well, descheduling means moving it.
Oh yeah, we talk about
unscheduling means just making it legal at a federal level, like just saying, okay, go hell's bells at it.
I like that option. I didn't even know that was a thing until now. I don't like re or D. At the end of the day, I don't like either one because I don't want it to go this way. But sounds
how about this? I don't care what happens as long as you can put a cannabis company on a U.S. stock exchange and you can put cannabis money in a bank, and I can go to a venture capitalist or a hedge fund or an insurance company or a pension fund and get money from them for the industry. I don't care what happens.
Okay, so as long as one of those happens, you're happy, you're golden.
As long as the amount of captive capital that can't invest into cannabis is unlocked happens.
Yes.
You're first of all, you're never going to hear from me again because I'm going to be literally sitting on a 300-meter boat. At that point, I'm going to be gone. I'm going to be just done. I'm going to be a ghost. I'm going to be. I don't believe
that for a second, but that's nice life goals because I feel like you're still going to stay in it because you know you can make money in it.
But let's get back
to
on the 300-foot boat.
Yeah.
Unrestricted capital, you're going to walk away and retire. Unbelievable. I don't believe it.
But here's the thing. So to your point of when is that going to happen, right? All of those 10 or 15 MSOs that we talked about are not buying each other anymore.
No.
And they're not making moves in California. Why? Because the relative benefit that they're going to get in a valuation that they would achieve is not going to be achieved and going to be rewarded in the current capital market constraints that exist on the company. So something needs to occur to unlock that. Okay. So then
they can only absorb more and be successful at it if it's an unrestricted capital market.
Well, I talked to the team at GTI a couple of weeks ago. Okay. Normally if you're a company like Apple and you tell the world, well, we're going to earn this much a share this quarter, and you earn 10% more, the stock price is going to go up, right? Conversely, if something different happens, even if you significantly overperform in a cannabis company, there aren't enough buyers to be able to really reward you for that performance, because the people that are buying it are having to go through Canada, and most of the money that invests in public equity, which is domiciled in the US, is not investing in you. So the momentum that you get from a lift, it's not going to happen. Yeah. So if GTI bought Verano, that might make strategic sense, but it's not going to be long-term accretion. It's not going to be long-term value accretion. So that long-term value accretion can really occur once capital markets can reward management teams for what they do. So once this unscheduling event occurs, I think two things. First of all, I think more money is going to show up in cannabis and timestamp this and record it and mark it. More money will show up into the vertical of cannabis than has ever showed up into any other market in the history of people on this planet.
I've said that in the past. I said that the MSOs are going to be, well, actually, no, actually what I said was not accurate, because I said we are creating some of the most profitable companies in the history of the world in the cannabis space if they stay around. Right now, we have a bunch of MSOs. Not everybody can be a winner. They are going to have to consolidate. You have to pick the one that's going to be the biggest at the end of the day.
It's not just that, because you have three things happening. MSOs are then going to go and buy other MSOs and smaller MSOs and other companies. That doesn't really excite me.
Okay.
I'll tell you what excites me. What excites me is that if you have, let's just say, $2 to $4 billion of fresh investor capital that has been chained up and restrained,
incredible,
and can't get in the industry, and all of a sudden it's free. Imagine how much money is going to be able to go into some of these cash-starved companies. So that really excites me. The second thing that really excites me is that we did a study where we looked at share of consumer wallet of cannabis versus other consumer products, alcohol, food, tobacco, CPG, luxury. I'm probably missing something, but keep going. Wellness was in there as well. And cannabis share of wallet per average consumer transaction is 20 to 30 times more, except luxury, than any of those other verticals. So you go to the store, you buy a 6-pack of beer at $6. You go to the store, you buy a 20-pack of joint, it's $19. So what really excites me the most, okay, you probably heard this, that there's 20 companies in the world that sell 80% of the products. So let's just go to that second tier. When Nestle and Unilever and Eli Lilly and ABN Bev and keep going, decides that, dude, this consumer is just stealing market share from my other portfolio of brands, and I need to be able to capture that wallet, that is when things are going to get fun. So the moment that I think is going to be really important is that when you start to see people that are in traditional other consumer product, just walk around 7-Eleven, right?
I know.
When all the people that own all those companies decide to start buying cannabis companies, that's the moment.
I feel like that's when I die inside a little bit, because that's when everybody I know, Justin, you always give me a hard time about this, but like, it wasn't easy starting in cannabis and starting a company. We got lucky. We knew what we were doing and stuff, but like, people didn't want to play with us. The banks don't want to play with us, and other people, and we got lucky that we had a certain amount of investors, and it was great. Some people were not as lucky, and I hope everything works out for them. But then having big companies just come and dabble in it, and they haven't had to go through any of the tough stuff, and then they just get to enjoy it and reap all the benefits. Yes, the companies do reap benefits because they get their money as well, and they're just coming along after. I just feel like they should put a little more sweat equity into it.
I agree with you, but again, it's about history. It's about history, though, right?
Oh yeah, I'm not historically accurate. What you said is historically accurate.
Just think about history for a minute, right? Because I like to go back to it. This is the California Gold Rush.
Yeah.
Can you tell me who was the first person to discover gold in California?
No, I cannot tell you, or I could
Okay,
make
well,
somebody up.
his name was James Marshall, and he found it at a place called Sutter's Mill. Now, most people think Johann Sutter was the first person to find gold.
Didn't that guy
But
die there though?
But it was really James Marshall, right?
Yeah.
And when most
Okay.
people are asked, give me one name that you associated with the California Gold Rush, do you know what it is? It's Levi Strauss. So when you talk about
I have
history,
nothing.
like
I have nothing. I have no
you have
names.
nothing.
I
You
just
have
remember
nothing. Well,
watching
that's okay.
a documentary about the guy in this, or listening to a podcast about a guy, and he found gold in California, and he went back, and he ended up dying, and on the spot. Well, he had all the gold with him, but I mean, like his obsession was his demise. Yeah, you're gonna Google it. I can see your Googling eyes right now. You are on the Google participate. Yeah, just find out if it's the same guy, because if it is, that's gonna be pretty interesting. But I get what you're saying. And yes, big billion-dollar companies that are not dabbling in cannabis, if they were to all of a sudden come and dabble because it's or deed, then yes, we all make money because they're going to be dabbling in our businesses. Well, the laboratory space, meaning mine and, Justin as a physician, you as a financial guru and shaman. But I also believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the amount of risk that these MSOs take on can also be quickly and swiftly their demise, because if they don't do things on the up and up, and their reputation gets tainted or dirtied in any way, that echoes throughout our industry. Our industry is not big enough to not notice.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up. So, one of my biggest clients is a company in California called Glass House, which is probably the largest greenhouse operator in the world. And there's another operator in California who has recently publicly been posting a lot of videos denigrating Glass House and slandering Glass House for things which are not true. So I'm seeing that firsthand in our industry, and it bothers me because you don't see the CEO of Polestar or of Rivian saying that Elon Musk's car sucks.
Right.
So I think part of what we got to do in the industry a little bit is realize that no, it's not just that, but by bringing someone else down, you're bringing us all down, and it's hard enough. So can't we just all figure out how to bring us up collectively together? Right? It's hard enough, man. I mean, you guys know how hard it is, and you can't imagine how hard it is in California. I mean, I get people calling me every day going out of business.
I was there. We were there, and now we're not.
So that's one thing that I think as an industry we got to do better at, honestly.
The one thing that I would say was the biggest trouble with California was there was a lack of regulation with an oversaturated laboratory space. We cannot compete with fake, and people are given values that are unreal. Okay. So from a laboratory space, there's a very limited amount of business that you can acquire, and you only know how to do one thing. You're a one-trick pony. You test weed, you cost them money. The growers want numbers. You aren't supposed to work for them, but you end up working for them because that's your check and they can go wherever they want. But we can't compete with people that choose to do shady activities in a market that allows them to do so. And that's happened in multiple markets, and it's frustrating as shit. But
understand,
you have to
like the thing that you brought up in the beginning of the show, right? With the telemedicine.
No, that guy, they're new to Florida, and
no, but I'm just saying it's the same concept where they're doing something that's wrong. They're taking the rules. They're
that's what they're hurting you, Justin.
Wrong.
They're doing everything.
How do you compete against them? Because
you can't. but you now have regulation that will punish them. I don't have that.
Right. Maybe it will. It's theoretically it will.
Actually, no, it's like the government, he has 30 days to sign the bill. If he doesn't, it automatically goes into effect. And that's happening.
It's also going to punish the individual doctor that's doing it, and the company can go on.
It's a physicians group. I've got proof that they advertised it telehealth before it was allowed, and that's in the language. I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not a narc. I'm not gonna go turn this in. It's not even my fight, but it's out there already, and the bill hasn't even been signed by the governor. Come on, dude. The laboratory space, they will eat you alive, and you're in the same industry as them. You've been vetted appropriately, just like you said. It brings everybody down. I had a LinkedIn incident the other week, and put us on blast for stuff that was not true, not accurate. But like, I wanted to go straight there and start like saying my piece, and my very wise, leader said, don't even give him the time of day. And I'm like, no, I'm petty and I'm scrappy, and I want to go and say something, stick up for us. And he's like, we know we're not doing anything wrong. So you just got to leave it. And yeah, I'm glad that he's smart enough to know that and tell me to do that. But sometimes you have to know when to walk away from different markets that need a little more work. But I think what you're doing is incredibly valuable. You know that too. So this whole bullshit confidence issue that you have is non-existent. It's almost like a reverse psychological.
He didn't say he's not confident.
It's like a mind fuck to me,
right?
Where he's like saying it, but he's showing me something different.
He just doesn't believe he's successful yet, because he doesn't have that 300-foot boat. He hasn't achieved the pinnacle.
No, we never asked you what your version of success is. What does it mean to you to be successful in this space? Make this a powerful statement, because everybody's watching, and this is the end of the show.
No,
I think for me, it's always been to be able to have a walk-off transaction that everyone can point to and say, wow, that's big, and we know who did that, and great job.
You want a
mic drop moment. That's what, did you say that?
Yeah.
You want a mic drop moment. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's what
my whole life is about having a mic drop.
I love that. I wish I could mic drop stuff I say funny at the grocery store, but I get it. You want a mic drop moment. We need to get you a mic. And then just to symbolize what you're working towards, I'm going to bedazzle it. It's probably going to be gold and turquoise, because obviously, and I'm going to have it shipped to your office, and you can give me a PO box, because obviously.
Super. I will tell you, I've been close. I really thought we had one, and it just, when my dad was alive, and I just couldn't convince him to sell it. And
that wasn't the one.
It wasn't. And then I had another one that was there, but it wasn't, and it was like this. It wasn't the one. So I'm waiting. Here's what I'm convinced of.
You're gonna find the one, though. That's the thing. Right?
I'm convinced that the further that I disassociate myself from the fact that that's important, the more it will manifest.
Yeah, so. You don't need an end goal, because are you still enjoying what you do?
Yeah. You said something earlier.
You're lying on our show. 2 octaves up is a lie. 2 octaves down is the truth. If you said, do I look fat in this dress? No. Or do you love me? Yes.
I still grind. I am genetically encoded to grind. So yes, I don't consider it work, because I consider work like serving in the military, or digging a ditch, or being a firefighter, or being in construction, or working in a coal mine. So it's not work. I do find that I enjoy some of it less and less.
Okay.
So I'm definitely looking at ways to work smarter and not harder.
You're confident that when cannabis becomes or deregulated, that you have your ducks in a row, you're ready to make your move?
Justin, I will tell you and your listeners this, and then we can sign off. I am confident that when that moment occurs, I will probably be one of the 15 most important people in cannabis on the planet.
And we had him on our show.
That's right.
What the fuck?
Take us with you,
Listen,
Seth.
I want to leave it at that. And I mean, this is on record and it'll be on video for all of time because the internet lasts forever. And I can't wait for you to be right. I can't wait for your statement to be proven accurate because you'd be the most famous person.
I can't wait for the world to know that Justin and Cynthia gave me the platform to project and prognosticate that. So thank you. My future self is thanking you right now.
Let's hope your future self invites us onto that 300-foot yacht.
I just want to hang out with him and like share bracelets. Like
you're invited. You're definitely invited to the party. I don't know that you're hanging out for an extended weekend, but you're definitely invited to the party.
My feelings aren't even hurt.
Big dinner.
Completely acceptable.
Big gift bag. Maybe a bungalow. You're definitely invited. It could be a 2-day event. And there's definitely going to be a mariachi band, and there's definitely going to be a gunfight, and there's definitely going to be a bullfighter there, and a whip show, and a clown, and a few other things. So, and a magician. It's a whole thing.
It's okay that it's short term because people say that I'm not for everybody, and I don't want to be for everyone. I want to be an acquired taste. I want to be, maybe small limited doses, and that's fine. But I also believe maybe you're not for everybody. That's why you can pick and choose who you want to work with. I don't have that luxury quite yet.
I'm going to tell you what, I want to, some of my partners have this company they want to do called T-shirt a day. My T-shirt every day is I'm offensive. It's just I'm definitely not for everyone.
If they need ideas for T-shirts, they need to call me because when I'm high, I write everything down and I'm freaking hilarious.
T-shirt a day.
I think really the back of that T-shirt should say "fuck you." I'm offensive.
I like that.
Fuck you.
Fuck you.
All right. Well, we're gonna sign off. This was no. Don't ever be sorry that someone else is offended. They're responsible for their own feelings.
All right.
I offend a lot of people sometimes. Someone told me to quit the show and go to 2 dudes again. They said that online. I'm not even kidding. I was like, I will consider this and thank you for your input.
Sounds good.
And then I cried. So this is Cynthia Brewer signing off for the Marijuana Mind. We will talk to you next week. And my wonderful co-host, go ahead, Jay Nasty.
Jay Nasty, you said it for me. You did it for me. Give me. I want a little, adjective like I give to you.
And
you think about it for next week. Next week, I want one.
I have. Sorry, I'm just going to pipe in. Yeah. I have a PhD level vocabulary. So my magnanimous host.
He's used that one before.
My effervescent host.
He's used that one.
My charming host.
He's used that one. Wow, you're not so good at this.
I also have a good vocabulary. That's all.
You guys both have a great vocabulary.
Two twos with good vocabularies dueling it out.
Oh, it could be a show. I'll step down, and it could be the 2 of y'all. This is what the listeners want, or that one listener that broke my heart last Tuesday. Try again, one more. He called me TNT one time.
Supercilious is good. Supercilious is good.
That's been used. I was episodes, dude. Come on, pull something out of the back.
Peerless.
No.
Peerless without peer. Peerless.
Give me something else. Give me something that has to do with being doctory and stable, grounded.
Am I? I'm an air sign. Gemini, air sign.
Air sign. I'll just say it.
Well,
with my co-host Jay Nasty, who fucking rocks. My rock. There you go. See, you're the balance to my
and the yin to your yang.
Yeah, you're like the other sister, the Venus and Serena.
I've got it. My erudite colleague.
I don't know what that means, but that's
there you go. See?
All right. We will talk to you guys next week.
All right. Thank you for joining us, and everyone, you heard it here first.
This is our biggest guest we've ever had in the history of ever. 80
That's
episodes.
scary. That's scary.
In the future. We're
Yeah, our
projecting in the
future
future.
most famous guest ever.
Thank you.
And we've had some pretty famous people.